Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we're back with another Why This License is Awesome, as we're taking a look at the Black Witch license, which has our another mech in it, and I'm going to be including both mechs in my overall, I guess, review of the license, my opinions on the license anyway. So yeah, it's gonna be very, very interesting, and I think it's really important to have both of them here as they share the other parts of the license as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Black Witch. Now, the Black Witch is actually a very fascinating mech, as it's a size 1, and you can see here that it is currently a controller and support frame. So it's based on controlling the enemies and supporting their team, but it's got some crazy good stats. So if we go down here, you can see in the stats above me here that the Black Witch has 1 armor, which is average, but below average health, which is 6, which is very typical. Most mechs that have armor tend to have a little bit less HP, as, you know, every hit they take essentially negates 1 damage. Their evasion is average of 10, but their E defense is nuts. Their E defense is 12, which is very interesting, and it kind of goes into the lore of the Black Witch, which is it's a mech that's very much designed around kind of like electromagnetic fields, and it causes a lot of tech disturbance, meaning that tech attacks in general have a harder time targeting the Black Witch, which is really cool. Now, heat capacity wise, they're average, but their repair capacity is well below average, making them very. The Black Witch is very much a be careful not to mess up mech, because if your mission for whatever reason requires more than 1 battle, it's going to take a lot more for you, or you're going to not be able to repair your mech as much as other mechs. Repairing a structure takes typically 2 repair capacity, so that's already pretty rough. And every time in combat you repair your mech, it takes 1 of your repair capacity. So you can't really mess up too much with the Black Witch, or you're going to be in a world of hurt. Now, the Black Witch has a lot of good defenses that kind of prevent that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I just wanted to talk about the rest of their stats, because they have a 15 sensors and an 11 target save, which are both pretty good, a little bit above average, and their speed is on the upper end of average, but their system points is 8, which is really, really good and gives you a lot of ability. Overall, core stat wise, the Black Witch is actually packing a lot of heat. Their overall defenses plus their sensor range and their system points gives them a lot of ability to kind of work around what you need it to and have some decent tank ability as well. I mean, all you have to do is just invest in some of your hull, and that armor will go a very long way. In addition to their traits here, which you have the repulsor field, which is just really good. It gives the Black Witch resistance to kinetic damage. Kinetic damage is one of the most common damage types amongst enemies, as most, solid weapons and as well most like guns that shoot some kind of ammunition are kinetic damage. Makes the Black Witch really, really strong, and it's very reasonable why their HP is as low as it is, as every investment in hull is going to give dividends in your mech's overall tank ability. Now, Mag Parry kind of stacks on top of it. Mag Parry is a once per round reaction where you attempt to parry kinetic damage, just negating it altogether. So any kinetic damage against you is either going to do like half damage, or is just going to do no damage if it gets parried. And you get the Mag Parry action that you can see here, but we do see where a lot of the oomph kind of gets taken out of the Black Witch, and that's in their pretty abysmal weapon mounts. They only have 1 weapon mount, and it's a main Ox mount, which is pretty good. It lets you have a main weapon and an Ox weapon, which is solid, or 2 Ox weapons, but it doesn't allow you to really do much else other than have 1 really good weapon with maybe a side weapon to go with it. So the mag in general is not designed for heavy combat, as they only have 2 weapons that they can utilize, though granted you can definitely take core bonuses that can adjust that, and you might want to, honestly, with the Black Witch. Now, their core system here is the Magnetic Field Projector, and it's a pretty solid ability, so I'll read it here. The system projects a Blast 3 magnetic field with it at least one space adjacent to you, causing the following effects until the end of your next turn. The affected area becomes difficult terrain. Range attacks that deal kinetic or explosive can't enter or leave the affected area. Projectiles stop at the edge, doing no damage. Record each attack stops this way. Mechs and other characters made at least partly of metal that start their turn in the affected area or enter it for the first time in a round must succeed a hull save or be pulled as close to the center as possible and become immobilized. When the effect ends, any range attacks that were stopped resume their trajectory towards the center of the affected area. The GM rolls attacks against each character within, gaining 1 per blocked attack. On a hit, these attacks deal 1d6 damage per blocked attack to a maximum of 6d6 damage. And that's inside or out. So you shoot into this bubble that you create, and it goes to the center, or if they try to shoot out, it stops and then goes back to the center to hit the targets for a maximum of 6d6 kinetic damage, pulling a whole bunch of enemies into an area and stopping them. Now, a size 3 area is pretty good for in general areas, but you're not likely to get 1, 2, at most I could see 3 in a battlefield. It's just these kind of battles are not designed to have a lot of enemies in the same area. Granted, of course, the Black Witch is really capable of changing that, but it's good against, I would say 2 enemies getting into it is enough to warrant the use of the core point. I would just say to be careful, when utilizing this, and it's also all characters, not just enemies. So you can accidentally pull your allies in if you're not careful. Next up, we have the Orchis, which shares its license with the Black Witch, which means when you get 2 ranks in this license, you get access to both the Black Witch and the Orchis, which is pretty cool. A size 1 mech, this one is a controller and defender rather than supporter like the Black Witch is. Now, I always find that the Orchis is a very strange addition to this license, as they don't really share a whole lot of design philosophy. But I'm not going to complain. It gives you a very wildly different type of mech to utilize in the license, which I think is very good. Now, as you can see here, this mech also has an armor, but has 8 HP rather than 6, making it more tanky than the Black Witch. It doesn't have the same E defense, though, going to the average, but its heat capacity is better, and its repair capacity is just a little bit better. It also has a -1 on its tech attack and not as much sensor range. Its save target, though, is 12, which is also really, really good, actually. 12 is a pretty sizable number, and it shares also the very awesome 8 system points as well, which I think makes the Orcas really, really good in general for what you want it to do. But let's go ahead and look at its traits here. So it has perfect parry. The Orcas and all adjacent characters are immune to all damage and effects from missed attacks. So any mechs that have the reliable trait, I think is what it's called, the reliable does nothing to the Orcas, which is actually really good, and it makes the Orcas one of the best mechs for dealing with many of the assault mech enemy types that are NPCs. So that is something that's already really, really cool. And they can extend it to their allies who are adjacent as well, which is really good. They also have Guardian, which is very interesting for a mech that's only a size 1, as Guardian makes the mech act as hardcover for its allies behind it. Now, I could definitely see going with, I think, the Formarian frame or the Brachios frame. I can't remember from NPC or NPS North Star, that can make your mech one size larger. I think would be really good with the Orcus, especially with these 2 traits. But yeah, very interesting that we have a Guardian mech that is only size 1. And we finally come to its final trait, which is Royal Guard. When an allied mech adjacent to the Orcus moves, the Orcus can also move with that character as long as it doesn't break adjacency, mirroring the character's movement. The character is still affected by obstructions between its turns. It can only move a total number of spaces with the ability with this ability equal to its speed +1. So you actually get +1 on your speed. So the strange thing about this is as long as you don't break adjacency. So if the ally would move out of your range, you just can't do it. But the +1 does mean that this technically allows your mech to, once per round, essentially move along with it. This action doesn't even take a reaction and doesn't provoke any reactions or engagement. The Orchis is the ultimate bodyguard style mech. But the strangest thing with the Orchis to me is that they have a main aux mount, which honestly doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like it should have at least 2 mounts and have something like main aux and main or along those lines, as it feels super limiting for what essentially is designed to be a mech that is right there with its allies, probably on the front line, but can be a good rear guard as well. It's not going to have a lot of firepower, which is going to be a problem I feel like a lot of people might have with the mech. So we're going to look at its traits down here, and I know my head is blocking it. I'm sorry. Let me shrink down real quick. Okay. Still blocking stuff, but I'll move when appropriate. Anyway, so the Orchis has one of the craziest core systems out there. So Hellion, it has a passive that's really, really good. Hunting Eagle is very amazing. So you get the Hunting Eagle action. That's a free action once per round. Whenever the Orchis causes a character to collide with another obstacle or character, you can, in addition to its effects, throw your Shuta, which is the shield that the mech has right here, or Skuta, whatever. That does 3 kinetic damage and renders them unable to take any reactions until the end of their next turn. The shield then returns to you. This effect doesn't take I don't know why it says it doesn't take an action or reaction to activate. It says free action right there. But yeah, that's insane. Now, that does mean that one of your main actions is going to have to probably be a ram action to get the most out of this. But still, pretty good. And it goes very, very well with the active bonus, which is, and I'll move my mic, or myself here, my image. The active Hellion version is a quick action, and you essentially hurl your shield at any mech, allied or hostile, within range 6. You then make a special ram attack that cannot miss, and the target is pushed back 3 spaces instead of 1. This can cause characters to collide with obstructions as normal, which can proc your Hunting Eagle. And this action is efficient, which means that at the end of the scene, you get your core point back. So your mech will always have this no matter how many battles you and your group kind of take part in. Now, that is really insane, and almost no mechs have the ability to just keep getting their core points back over the course of the battle. And since it blends so well with their passive action, I mean, you're going to be ramming a lot just because these actions are so good. But yeah, it's a very interesting mech. I also like the hoof design. You can see, can't see it well because my face is in the way, but the hoof design that you can see here on this mech, I think is just really, really cool. So it's a very good defender mech. It is designed to be there next to their allies defending them. So now let's take a look at the other parts of the license that these two mechs share. So starting at rank 1, you get Magnetic Canon, which is a line 8 main cannon that does a D3 plus 1 damage, and all characters in the line must make a hull save or be pulled 1d3 plus 1 spaces to you or as close as possible. This is actually really good for both mechs, except I feel like the Orchis wants to do damage with their weapon more than anything. And to be fair, 1d3 plus 1 is good, but I don't know. I just feel like there would be a better weapon for the Orchis. Regardless, this is really good. You can pull enemies to you, and this helps with just the overall theme of, moving the enemies rather than your allies on the battlefield. Now, the Pharaoh Slash is a really good system. You also get this one at rank 1. And for just 2 system points, you get probably one of the best support items in the game. It's amazing. So activate Pharaoh Slash is an action that allows you to choose a character within range 8 and line of sight. If they are allied to you, you can pull them 5 spaces in any direction. Now it says pull, which is very strange. It's essentially move. Pull is such a weird word to put here, and it doesn't state that they need to stay within your respective range. So technically, they could be 8 spaces away from you, and then you could push them 5 feet even further. The wording here is very vague, and I mean, I just am going to assume that they mean you can move a character 5 spaces in any direction. Now, if they're hostile, you can do the same thing, but the enemy gets an agility save in order to resist it. Now, this movement does ignore engagement and doesn't provoke reaction, so you can't use this to help your allies get off their Overwatch. But still, that's really, really good. And if a hostile target moved by this system collides with an obstruction, they are stopped moving and are knocked prone. That is really good. So not only is that a 5 move, like force movement kind of action, but can also knock people prone. In addition, that's really, really good. The Pharaoh Slash is a really good item. And for just 2 system points, man, there's so many mechs that could utilize this very, very well. I think the Pharaoh Slash is really good. And as a support item, it's really good because on your team, you can just move an ally, 5 feet in a direction, getting your heavy hitters right into the thick of combat, which is pretty nuts. I thoroughly love the Pharaoh Slash and is a super good pickup for the rank 1 license. For rank 2, not only do you get the 2 frames, but you also get Ice Out Drone, which is very interesting indeed and very situational, but it's 2 system points and you create a drone. And this drone can be a free space within your sensor range and line of sight, and then it generates a burst 1 field. This burst 1 field pretty much blocks out any tech actions in the area by mechs or characters that are caught in the area. Essentially, the techs in this area become immune to all tech actions, but cannot take any tech actions. Existing conditions and effects caused by tech actions are not cleared, but the character are immune to them while they're in this area, and they can be saved against normally. So if they normally save at the end of their round, they do save even if they're not suffering from its effects. Now, the Ice Out Drone can also be moved as a quick action, which is very solid. This is a limited 2, so you can have 2 pretty much per battle. But yeah, it's not bad, and it's really good if you're dealing with an enemy that does very terrible things in tech. Even though it might prevent some tech actions, there's just some mechs out there, like a lot of our IPS North Star friends, who just don't care about using tech actions. And so being in this area can just prevent one of their major weaknesses. A Blackbeard would love sitting in this blackout area. Or you could just throw this on the enemy, forcing them to move out of their range. Though most mechs have a move as a part of their standard action, so I don't think that's very useful. Regardless, the Ice Out Drown is really good, and when you can create 2 of these at a time, more if you invest in your, I forget what pilot skill goes into your limit. I think it's engineering. So the more you invest into your engineering, the more drones you can get out of this, which I think works out very, very well. All right, also at rank 2, you get the Perimeter Command Plate. This plate is really awesome. I thoroughly enjoy this one. Now, what happens is that you create a metal plate when you use the quick action that is in a free 2x2 space, and it creates a size 2, essentially, plate that does one of 2 things based on whether it's a hostile character or an allied character. Well, I guess it does one of 2 things, and then it does additionally different things, whether they're hostile or allied characters, which is very interesting. Now, this construction that you create, the plates themselves, while they have a size and like HP, they are considered flat and do not obstruct any of your movement. So if I scroll down just a little bit here, what you can see here is that the command plate allows you to be set into one of two modes, Repulse or Attract. Now, in Repulse mode, a hostile character that enters the plate's space must make a hull save or be pushed 3 spaces in the direction of the Black Witch's choice. If this causes them to collide with an object, they're then knocked prone. Allied characters that enter this space immediately fly 3 spaces in any direction as a free action. So, an ally that moves into this space gains 3 movement and can treat that 3 movement as if they had flight, which is really, really good. This reminds me of Halo, the jump pads in a lot of levels where you jump and you kind of fly up to like a higher level. Very, very cool. I absolutely love the repulse function. Attract is just as good, but it's more of a against enemies and allies. So any character that moves into this space must make a hull save or become immobilized. They can clear immobilized by successfully repeating the same save as a quick action. It's also cleared if the PCP is destroyed. So Attract hits both enemies and allies, something you have to keep in range, but this is really good for keeping enemies out of a certain area on the map, as if they run into it, they're going to have to make a hull save or they just become immobilized and have to sit there and destroy the plate that has 20 HP, which is a massive amount of HP, by the way. I like this one. I like it a lot. Now, if you ever create an additional plate, the prior one becomes destroyed. And another good thing about this particular plate is it is not limited. So you can keep creating these plates as much as you want, though you must be careful because when you use one, the old one goes away. So something to keep in mind. Overall, a really, really good action, a really, really good system that you can add to either the two mechs, Black Witch or Orchis. This is really good for a variety of functions. Mostly the repulse feature because it can be beneficial to your allies or keep enemies away, but still something that I think is very, very good. And there's nothing saying that when it's in repulse that your characters have to move away from it. So you could put a one size mech in the middle and just block off a bunch of their adjacency squares from enemies, or they'll just get pushed away, which I think is very, very cool. All right, for rank 3, we had the Black Ice module, which is a system that makes it very hard for tech attacks against you. Now, if you're using the Black Witch, oh man, you're going to become completely untouchable by tech abilities. And if you're the Orchis that doesn't get any benefits, yeah, this is really good as well. So any tech attacks against you or adjacent allies, so if you're playing the Royal Guard style of Orchis, this is really good, receive a +1 difficulty, which is nutty. Each subsequent tech attack against you or the allied character receives an additional +1 difficulty to a maximum of +3 difficulty. Your bonus, the extra difficulty dice, reset to 1 difficulty when it would increase to 4 or at the end of the scene. Allied characters lose this benefit when they break adjacency. So it either keeps cycling based on being repeatedly affected by tech attacks, or when it would be a +4 difficulty, it resets back to +1. So something to keep in mind is it's really, really good. And for the Black Witch, as I said before, you're already very hard to hit. So this is just going to make you even harder. And the Orchis can just pick this up to give not only itself extra E defense, but to those it's guarding, which can make the bodyguard style playstyle very fun for the Orchis. Excuse me. All right, and the final part of the license is Magnetic Shield. So Magnetic Shield is just 2 points, and it's really, really good. So you activate this Magnetic Shield, you create a force field that is a 4-space line that is 4 spaces high, and it must be adjacent to you when you create it. This obstructs the path for mechs and characters made at least partially of metal, and it lasts for the rest of the scene or until a new one is created. Now, the force field doesn't block line of sight, but it does provide soft cover, and any characters benefiting from this cover gain resistance to both kinetic and explosive damage while benefiting from this cover. This is just a really good defensive capability, perfect for blocking off like main ways between buildings or even hallways if you're doing an interior battle. And it's 4 spaces high, which is pretty high and can slow down even mechs that have flight pretty significantly. So it's definitely a really good action. Not super impressive for rank 3, but just the ability to give resistance to your allies and create this shield in front. Like, people don't realize how much the further an enemy away from you is, the farther they're going to have to move to get past a wall you create right in front of you to hit you. And even with like a size 4, even if an enemy is very close to you, they still have to go pretty far out and around just to try to hit you with this, meaning that they're going to have to either spend a lot of movement getting to you or just attacking somewhat futilely through your force field. Magnetic Shield is really good, and that is the Black Witch license as a whole. Now, it's definitely, I think, very much orientated towards enemy movement and, of course, towards defense for a lot of the features, making the Black Witch a really good, like, mid guard kind of unit that is, it stands somewhere between the front line and the back line of your team to help provide benefits to the front line with like the use of Pharaoh Slash, or to your back line with things like Magnetic Shield. Orchis Frame especially just is a really good rear guard if any enemies are running up on you to attack your rear line like long distance fighter. The Orchis can protect them very good. The Orchis is also just really good if you have any defense missions you need to take. The Black Witch is, I think, more of an all-rounder, good for some offense and defensive capabilities. Making this license really solid. I think the Black Witch is, like, if I was to do a tier list on licenses, not frames specifically, but licenses, the Black Witch would probably be like a pretty S tier license in my opinion. There's just so much that's really good from it. Even the first level of the Black Witch license is really good. I think my only gripe is that there's not a good auxiliary weapon to go with the magnetic cannon main weapon that comes here, considering both the Black Witch and the Orchis have the main aux mount. So that being said, that's going to be it. Hopefully this gave you guys some interesting insight on the Black Witch, and of course, can help you make an informed decision if you decide to go the Smith Shimano. I love Smith Shimano. It's probably it's one of my favorite of the corporations. I like them all, but Smith Shimano just has a special like place in my heart. Anyway, if you liked this video and you want to see more Lancer content out there, because I know there's not a lot, please subscribe or at least like this content so more people out there can get to see it. It really helps out on the channel. And as well, if you want to get a notification every time a new video comes out, you can join our Discord linked in the description. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. And next week, we're going to be talking about the Baylor license, which I'm very excited about. So if you want to see the Baylor, hit that subscribe button. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.